Jaina Baumgartner. I'm a Sitecore strategy MVP, and I have my own company nowadays. I was a speaker at last year's Symposium, but not this year. And I've done webinars with Sitecore's SBOSS team this year, and also for Legal Marketing Association. A lot of people here actually know me from my client-side days. So I spent my first 6 years with working on Sitecore on the client side, working with EPAM actually. Yeah, from my project manager, strategist, developer, everybody pretty much was been worked with on that side of the fence. And on that side, I managed a team of 30, and on this side, I help clients like a lot of you guys do as well. All right, so here's my Symposium picks, I guess.
Chris and David?
Yeah, Chris and David, yeah.
And a dragon, because you have to have the dragon.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the dragon.
Oh yeah.
So basically, I picked a few topics that I'm just going to highlight. My honorable mention is Content Hub, but I know a lot of people are going to go into a lot of detail there. So I've picked just things that I found really interesting at Symposium during different sessions. So number 5 is Sitecore and SFMC, which I guess is talked a lot, but I don't know. I have a potential roadmap, I guess. Sitecore and Google Analytics, which I thought there were a few really good sessions around. Sitecore 9.3 and what's coming for marketers. Sitecore AI, and the power of storytelling, which was all the keynotes were on that. So from a Content Hub perspective, by 2020, 90% of brands will practice at least one form of marketing personalization, but content, not data, will be the bottleneck and primary cause of failure. Hence, Content Hub is really important because it can be that place of basically preventing that failure. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but the way I see it, there's 4 pieces to Content Hub: DAM, MRM, CMP, and PCM, and I'm sure, Brent, you'll talk.
Yeah, I'll talk a little more about it.
All right, okay. Okay, so number 5, Sitecore and Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So here's a little bit of a roadmap of where Sitecore is going or what they're doing with it. So right now you can obviously do the assets back and forth, and I think a lot of this you can do maybe with the newer connector. I'm not sure if anyone used it recently, but basically you should be able to sync behavioral data from Sitecore into Salesforce's audience builder and content builder, sync email, and manage content blocks from Sitecore into Salesforce's emails, and leverage basically Sitecore's personalization and Salesforce Marketing Cloud's email, and then insert personalized content from Sitecore into the SFMC email. All right, so Sitecore and Google Analytics. There were 3 sessions that really caught my eye around this. The first one was the sprint story, which isn't really about Google Analytics, but it really showcases the power of how personalized paid search could work with personalized websites. So what this picture shows is, Sprint has 50 million wireless customers, and what they can figure out based on where users, which websites users go to who are on the Sprint network, they can figure out their churn risk. So basically, if you're on the Sprint network and open an AT&T website or a Verizon website, you have a high churn possibility.
No creepiness there.
Yeah, no creepiness at all.
And that's the reason why net neutrality is so important.
Yeah. So, so basically, what they can do then is start to personalize everything around you, right, to keep you in their network. So things like having local marketing and inventory where you can just buy things from their network, a local shopping experience, so your digital storefronts show you what's in inventory in your local stores, and the ability to browse your local and your digital stores at the same time, and then an online to offline sales tool. So basically have integrated experience. And then what they got by doing some of this, so Sprint basically was in trouble in 2015 or 2016, and they reinvented how they're going to personalize the website and do some of this stuff around it, and mostly personalized paid. So when they see a churn risk, their paid marketing really starts to target you, or you're coming into a Sprint store, they start to really, figure out how they're going to make you a customer. And what they saw with that was an 11% increase in their ROI based on marketing spend, a 15 to 25% average conversion uplift, 5 to 10 times more email subscriptions from on-site triggers, 19% uplift of pages per visit. So basically, really good uplift in general from their paid personalization. So not just on the website, but also off of the website. So personalizing the entire experience. All right, so the next session that I thought really talked about this further was a horizontal integration session that, and you can see this demo at demo.horizontalintegration.com. Basically, what it does is it passes the persona, so the Sitecore persona that you set up as a custom dimension to personalize Google search and AdWord campaigns. So basically, it sends your Sitecore ID and your persona, and then builds the segments and audiences in GA. And then you set up your GA AdWords to use that custom dimension, and Google will start picking the appropriate ads based on your persona. So when you go to this website, when you've basically, figured out someone's within a certain persona on the website, not only can you personalize the website, but you can start personalizing your paid ads to target that same user. So you have a paid ad target for the same, for users that are personalized. And then in GA, you can see your data by your patterns as well. So for the investor, this is what it's looking like, your page views and your pages per session, etc. And then RDA actually did a session on how to do this via GTM, and also to trigger goals in Sitecore, goals and outcomes in Sitecore via GTM, because I'm sure, as most of you guys know, it's except for the out-of-the-box goals, it's pretty difficult to trigger goals for marketers. You have to write a little bit of code to do it. So basically, on GitHub, David Ruckman put up his code that's basically an agent into Sitecore, and then you stick that in as a GA tag, and that way you can start triggering goals, outcomes, campaigns, downloads, and page events in Sitecore through GTM. So now a marketer can trigger things. They can set up a goal and trigger it in Sitecore without ever talking to a developer.
I was on a separate talk at Symposium done by the Sitecore Commerce team, where they've done the same thing. They've actually come up with a module that you can install into Sitecore to provide those endpoints, so that basically over on the Google Tag Manager side, you can say, when they click this button, when they visit this page, trigger this goal, trigger this outcome. And so it's just an AJAX endpoint, which makes a lot more sense from the whole development process.
Right.
Because every time we try to talk to the marketing team early, like when we're trying to develop the components themselves, they don't know what you're talking about. They can't visualize the site in their head. They don't know how users are going to interact with it.
Right.
So doing it in back-end code either requires a second pass, the inevitable phase 2 that never happens, or you need something like this, where you can actually trigger those outcomes and goals and things from something like the Google Tag Manager, which most of your marketing departments are familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, it also helps you change them, right? Because you're going to create more stuff. You're going to change your website over time, and you need the ability to change what you're doing. And this allows you the ability to do that quickly. Module.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to Sitecore 9.3. So the top features for marketers, in my opinion, I guess, is Horizon, the experience optimization dashboard, testing enhancements, marketing automation enhancements, EXM enhanced templates, and then forms enhancements. Talk a little bit about this. So the content testing, the main thing is reach has been replaced by impressions. So Sitecore used the word reach for a while, which is not really an industry term, but impressions is more commonly used like by Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that, so it's easier to comprehend. It's basically the number of people that have seen your content. So they just changed the terminology in their reporting. For personalization, before 9.3, you have to set up a test. You have to set up a personalization test to see how your personalization is performing. In 9.3 onwards, you don't have to do that. It automatically, if you set up personalization, it will figure out how it's performing. Marketing automation now has a scheduled plan enrollment. So basically, you can start automation based on certain time of day of the week, or a given date.
For 9.3, did they include any way to actually test your personalization rules?
Yes, you could always test your personalization rules, but you have to set up a personalization test before 9.3.
Okay.
You have to actually say, I'm going to test this.
Gotcha.
After 9.3, it just automatically always tests it, basically.
I meant, so like, geolocation example, I want to test somebody's coming from Virginia. How would I test that scenario?
You can do that with Experience Explorer.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is also all versions of Sitecore, or I don't know all versions, but at least 8 onwards has this. It's called Experience Explorer, and you can basically, it has like 2 panels, and on the left side you can put in scenarios, I guess, and then in the middle is the page that would change, and on the right panel it shows you what your scenario translates to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think the Horizon has a lot about that.
It's like something that's always been asked, like, how do I test this?
It's a very, very hidden feature prior to 9.3.
Yeah.
But it is doable. You can basically say, pretend I am a guy in this profile card, or pretend that my VoIP is this. What would the page look like in that context?
But the question is that like usually marketers asking like how I would test this, because you have like 5 personas and you're trying to update, like you're trying to define exact variation of this page for those personas, and like with outer personalization or any A/B testing, there is not really valid use case for that. You cannot really test it because you're not really sure what will be there, and like it's not static content anymore. So the only thing that you might test at this point is that the site actually works when you switch in from one zip code to another. So, but not
marketers, I don't want to speak for a marketer, but the clients that I interact with, they want to test that scenario.
And then, yeah, for sure.
They absolutely can't go back to the boss and like, did you test this? And they go, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to show up.
Yeah.
So we go AI though.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah. So, and this is actually not the software question, it's more education, like question how you educate customers, like, okay, they want AI, but this is what AI will mean, that you don't control all the things all the time.
Yeah.
So like you kind of relying on the system based on like few test cases that you've done before, that it will show you correct content, and you also looking in your like Google Analytics or anything like that and seeing, okay, whether I'm getting better results, worse results, and that's what matters. Not really what exact content you're showing, but it matters like whether you have clicks, whether they have engagement, whether more people going through funnel.
right.
So yeah, you might want to try out Experience Explorer. It's like literally where you see, edit view, debug view, like in that drop down, one of the views is Explorer view. So if you click on that, you'll see the ability to test personalization.
Okay, cool.
All right, so Horizon, here's a few screenshots of it. So this is the editing interface of Horizon. Basically on the left is your content tree. Middle is your page, and then right you can, I don't know, it's hard to tell, but change fonts, I guess. So
I think that's where the fields show up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've got a lot of the fields editor that you would see like from content editor is on that right panel.
Okay, got
That's
it.
a show hide thing. So it really is a combination of experience editor and content editor put together in a way that I think is going to make it a lot easier for people.
Yeah, because a lot of people, even though experience editor should be the better marketing interface, most people still use content editor.
It's really hard to move between pages in Experience
Yeah,
Editor.
it's difficult.
Yeah.
You've got to move around.
Oh, yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like navigation often won't work, and
So the fact that the content tree is represented in that left
Mhm.
panel
Yeah.
that you move around is great.
Yeah.
They're gonna sunset the content editor
Absolutely.
at some point. They would like to do it already, but they know they can get away with it. But they will eventually, once this thing is stable, they eventually get away with it.
Yeah. And then this is the simulator view, so you can basically see your page in different, device types and stuff like that. And then the insights view, so you see how your page is performing. So forms, the big features of forms are more fields. So there's a confirm email field and a file upload field. Forms allows the ability to have reCAPTCHA now, so bot detection, and then the ability to redirect to external URLs and pass form fields, and then publish forms from the UI. All right, so Sitecore AI. Basically, Sitecore talked about their Microsoft story or Microsoft Partner Network story of putting out AI with them and testing out Sitecore AI with the Microsoft Partner Network. So the Microsoft's challenge was that they just had a lot of visitors and a lot of visitors, a lot of page views, and only 29% of their visitors were authenticated. But basically, they wanted to be able to have many variations, so 38 variations of their pages, which was a lot to maintain and a lot to keep up with. So that's where Sitecore AI really helped them. It actually had a 16% lift in their average engagement value and a 30% reduction in their design and configuration. So it simplified personalization, right? Because they didn't have to keep up with all of those rules on that many variations of the pages. So what is Sitecore AI? It's a SaaS product. It's an add-on to Sitecore. You can use it 9.0 and above, so it doesn't need like 9.3. You can use it if you're just on 9.0. It does require 12 million plus sessions per year to be effective. And what it does is it creates if you create a variant of content, it can pick the best one based on your cluster. All right. And if you don't have Sitecore, if you don't qualify for Sitecore AI, Cortex might still work for you. So Una did a great session on Cortex, and that's her blog post on it. But at a high level, basically Cortex brings together completed A/B tests and big data. So this is the out-of-the-box Cortex. Sitecore has many meanings of Cortex, but Cortex could also be like what you build like you can use it as a framework to build your own algorithm and your own AI structure. But this is basically what is out-of-the-box personalization suggestions today in Sitecore 9.1 and above. And the goal is that you can set up personalization suggestions by creating A/B tests, and Sitecore will start to not just tell you that one's a winner, one's a loser, but basically tell you this one's a winner in these segments and this one's a winner in these segments. And here's a good structure on how to, what the strategy should look like around Cortex. So you first create content, then set up your engagement value and basic goals, set up your A/B tests and start preparing campaigns, and then launch it, right? Because at this point you don't need your profile cards or anything like that. But then you analyze your content, and that can actually be something that you take in based on what segments are created. You can take that in to create your profile cards and to create and to redefine your score and then personalize your website. So you would have to actually take the Cortex suggestions and then apply it to personalization. All right, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about was the power of storytelling, so bringing it all together, and I thought this was a cool graph. It's the exact same graph, but tells a very different story based on how you look at it. So the one on the left obviously tells you that there's a lot of depth, right, in Iraq. But the graph on the right shows you that the depths are on the decline. And by using color, how the graph is represented, and the tagline, you can basically tell a very different story with the same data. So the goal is, every time you present something, it's to tell a story, not just, and I think this is important for marketers in general, how are you telling a story rather than, just talking about data, right? And finally, the MVP strategy category has a bit of a revamp in that, and I know there's more revamping to come in 2020, but they've set up a SMAC group, I guess, basically their advisory council on the strategy side. And more than just people that do personalization can qualify as a strategy MVP. It's basically anyone who's a content strategist, UX strategist, marketer, designer, basically anyone who does non-technical things with Sitecore and strategizes with your client in different ways.